This is Join Us in France, episode 188. Bonjour, I'm Annie, and Join Us in France is the podcast where we talk about France, its many quirks, its history, its language, and of course, destinations in France you want to learn about because hopefully you'll be visiting soon. Join Us in France is brought to you by Patreon supporters and Addicted to France, the small group tour company for people who want to enjoy France to the fullest with zero stress. You can check out our upcoming tours on addictedtofrance.com. And if you're in Paris late May, you could also join us for a tour to Giverny, where Claude Monet had his gorgeous garden. Still is there. It's beautiful. Or Versailles. That will be a tour of the king's private apartments as well as the rest of the chateau. Those are on May 26th and 25th. And if you want to see all the details, go to joinusinfrance.com. And of course, Join Us in France is also brought to you by me, Annie, and my terrible voice today. I will be telling you more about that at the end of the episode. On today's episode, I chat with Elyse on the pitfalls and the joys of visiting Paris in August, or more generally speaking, in the summer months. We recorded this episode in early winter 2017, not too long after Elyse had been to Paris in late July, so it was all fresh in her mind. This question has come up this past week in the Join Us in France closed group on Facebook. So I thought, well, now's a good time to release this episode and talk about this. People who are coming to Paris for the first time in August or in the summer months wonder what's going to be open and closed. And it's a fair question. I caution you against relying on information that started circulating decades ago and that somehow still gets repeated today. No, Paris does not shut down in the summer. In fact, Paris is teeming with activity in the summer. That's why you should have a strategy to minimize wait time in various places, and we explain how in this episode. Elyse and I also get talking about Airbnb in Paris. There are some things you need to know about that, so you can ask the renter important questions that will impact the quality of your stay. We also recap some quick tips about prevailing against pickpockets in this episode and about the best kinds of bag for a trip to Paris for both your comfort and your safety. Visiting Paris in August or in the summer months is also a great joy. It's a time to rent bikes because car traffic is much lighter. It is also the time for Guinguettes. Even if you don't remember the word Guinguettes, I'm sure you've seen them pictured in paintings or in the movies. They are the places where locals and visitors alike go on summer evenings to have some drinks and dance, and they are almost always right along the river. There are some famous ones and some not so famous ones all along the Seine River and the Marne River. We recommend one that is close to the Eiffel Tower on Quai de Suffren. And I'll write this out for you in the show notes, which you can find at joinusinfrance.com/188, the number 188. August in Paris is also the time for walks in neighborhoods you don't know, trying boulangerie and restaurants you've never heard of. You shouldn't be wary of doing that. We have great food all over Paris, and for the most part, all over France too. One great place to take such a walk would be around the delightful Palais Royal area, as we've mentioned in several episodes. We want you to have a wonderful time in Paris in August, which in our mind includes this piece of advice. Yes, you do need air conditioning when you are visiting Paris in August, July, or maybe even June and September. Having lived in France for so long, Elyse has gone native a little bit, and she is not a fan of air conditioning. But even she admits that when the temperatures climb over 95 Fahrenheit, which they do, often for days on end, it's really hard to get some rest without AC where you're sleeping. And now on with my conversation with Elyse, where you will learn about all these things I just told you about and more. Bonjour Elyse, how are you today?
I'm fine, Annie. It looks like the weather's changing.
Yes, we are going to talk about going to Paris in the summer, but what we have is...
no more summer.
No more summer, it's gone.
It's gone, and I'm going to cry.
Remember how many times we said on the podcast that this year we have an Indian summer?
Yes.
Not this time.
Not this time.
Not in 2017.
No. The summer has gone away with the last days of August.
Yes. So guys, ladies and gentlemen, I should say, if you come to France this fall, make sure you bring a rain jacket.
Yes, indeed.
Or two, because you will need it.
Yes, you will need it.
Okay. So, but today we are talking about visiting Paris in the summer.
Exactly. I'm going to be nostalgic for the horrible heat. Yeah, I thought it would be interesting for us to talk about Paris in the summer, meaning really Paris in July and August, in the what is called the heart of the high season,
right?
Which is, of course, the high part of the tourist season, because it is a little bit different. Obviously, the buildings don't go away; nothing changes in that respect, but. Some things do change.
No kidding. The buildings
some of the buildings seem to have gone away, but maybe we're just drinking too much rosé along the Seine River or something.
Copperfield did a number on them.
Exactly. But it is quite. So the whole point is that I was there for a small week, almost a full week, at the end of July.
Right.
Which is really, really, really the heart of the high-end season in Paris.
Right, and I did the same thing, but the year before you.
The year before.
Yeah.
And I was there with my two sisters, so we are three adult women, well over a certain age. And it was very interesting. It was a lot of fun. One of my sisters has actually lived in France and speaks some French. But the other sister is basically a novice. So it was very interesting, first of all, to choose what we were going to do and not do.
Right.
And also, my experience in the past has been of going to Paris in July or August with a full group as a guide. I've done that 2 or 3 times in the last 7 or 8 years. And very, very honestly, each time said, oh my God. So I thought it would be really interesting to talk about the good things about going in the summer and the pitfalls of going in the summertime.
Yes.
Because they're just things, it's not that it's not a good idea.
Sure.
If you cannot go in the spring or in the autumn.
Some people can't help it. That's
right. Some people can't. They either have jobs that have to do with the school year, or they have kids in school, or whatever. For whatever reasons, they prefer to take their vacations actually in that part of that season. Excuse me. But so there are a couple of things that I thought were really delightful about doing that, and then just kind of things I thought people should have a heads up about, so that they know if you're going to go, even if it's just for 3-4 days, there are things you should be aware of ahead of time.
Very good.
So
very nice of you to warn us.
Yeah, well, it's warning, and at the same time talking about what makes it kind of fun at the same time. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows if you live in France that French people go on vacation pretty much from mid-July to mid-August.
Right.
Now, with things changing a little bit, the work world is changing. There are families and certainly young professional people who tend to move their vacations around a little bit. And so you don't have as much of this kind of mass exodus. But it is a fact that from mid-July through the third week in August, you have a lot less traffic in Paris because a lot of the Parisians are gone.
Right. And I think even in the first week of August, parking is free in Paris.
The first 2 weeks.
The first 2 weeks.
The first 2 weeks of August. Parking is, and here too in Toulouse. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Parking is free the first 2 weeks in August, which is very nice of the city government to do. Because
it's
otherwise,
probably because they don't have enough cops to go around giving tickets.
I don't know why. Actually, I think it's their service to tourists. I think it's service to tourists because the fact is that a lot of tourists, the big tour groups obviously don't have to worry about that because they go in buses. Yeah. But and we didn't use a car because we were using public transportation, except for the one day we went out of the city and we took the train. But I think it is a nice thing to know that, yes, you can park for free if you have a car. However, most people who spend a few days in the heart of Paris don't usually have a car if they're there as a tourist, unless you do one of the, they have these rent electric cars that are really great, which are really just like the bikes. You can rent them by the hour.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. I think some of them are smarts, those tiny little Mercedes that seat two people.
Yeah, they're very small.
They're very small. Yeah. Although I actually have a distant cousin who lives in Paris, and one day she took one of these cars so that we could drive from one end of the city to the other, and it was in fact a 4-seater. So they do have some 4-seaters. But if in fact you are going to Paris in the summertime and one day or part of a day you want to use a car, they're kind of fun, actually.
Yeah.
You plug them in, just like you plug in your computer, and you charge it up, and then you take it but you have to know where the next station is, obviously.
Yeah.
It's just like with the bikes, with the free bikes. You have to know where you can leave it off. You can't just roam around the city forever and ever. But it's actually a good possibility to do. So one of the nice things about that is that there is that kind of mass evacuation, which helps the circulation, which does help the pollution because Paris, and this was the case this year in July, can be very hot. Mm-hmm. Surprisingly, people don't realize it, but it can get very, very hot. And hot is hot. And when you're walking around city streets, sidewalks,
and it's 100 degrees,
cobblestones, and the metro, the trains. Some of the train lines have modernized, so they're air conditioned inside, and some of them have not. The stations, just like since I'm a New Yorker, if you go down to the subway in New York in the summer, it's like going to the 7th level of Dante's Hell. I mean, it's it's probably 150,000 degrees down there. It's like, really, do I have to do this? Yes.
Yeah.
And the buses are air conditioned, so that's not a problem. But what happens is because there is such a mass evacuation of what I guess we could call the locals, you also have a lot of small stores and restaurants that close as well.
Right, because they don't have enough staff and they rely more on locals than on tourism.
And they go on vacation. And unlike stores in the States, which basically never close, and we're not talking about just the fact that stores in France, of course, most of them do close on Sundays still. If they have a staff of 2, 3, or 4 people, very often they will simply shut down for at least 2 weeks in the summer. So for little shops that are boutique shops, clothing shops, and things like that, sometimes it doesn't matter. Obviously, all the big stores, like the department stores, obviously, they are open all the time. Of course. Remember, though, that they are still all closed on Sunday. The only things that really are not closed on Sunday are a few of the stores in some of the very touristy areas, like around Saint-Michel or in the Marais, where small stores tend to open for 4 hours on Sunday from 11 to 3 or from 1 to 5 or something like that. But otherwise, it's still a big disappointment for some people who think that they can save their shopping for Sundays, and then they find, whoops, no, you can't. It doesn't work. But food you can do. But those are some of the sort of basic things that happen in terms of the atmosphere of being in Paris. If you want to get a sense of what it's like to be a Parisian or a person who actually lives in Paris, there's the good side of that and the bad side of that. But the other part is that there are really masses and masses and masses of tourists who come to Paris in the summer.
Right, because the locals go away, but the tourists arrive in droves.
The tourists arrive in droves. Now, there are lots of things you can do where it doesn't affect you one way or the other. However, this is one of those things. This is just by personal experience. I've been in Paris so much of my life. I've gone so many times. I've gone every month of the year practically. But I had really forgotten, and I'm just going to give this as an example. There is an exhibit at a museum that I just want to mention because it's one that I haven't really talked about, but it's a wonderful, wonderful, small, relatively small museum, and that is the Museum of Decorative Arts. Yeah. It's in the big building that is part of the Louvre.
Yes, Rue de Rivoli.
Rue de Rivoli.
The entrance is Rue de Rivoli, right along...
Right near the carousel.
The carousel, the Porte des Lions.
Right.
It's right there. Yeah.
And we'll do a podcast about it because it's a little gem of a museum in terms of the kinds of things that it has. Right now, it has an exhibit that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is still up for another couple of weeks. So if any of you are about to go to Paris, this is something, if you're interested in fashion and the history of fashion design, to take in because it's an incredibly immense exhibit. But there has been all summer long an exhibit of the work of Christian Dior. That is the house of Christian Dior and all of the designers who worked for him. Mm-hmm. Because first you had Christian Dior, then you had Yves Saint Laurent, who eventually made his own design house, and then you have a whole lot of others. The exhibit got an enormous amount of press in the United States. It got a huge rave review in the New York Times, among other places. I'm not sure what else.
That's good and that's bad.
And that's good and that's bad. And so it was a museum that I was planning on taking my sisters to as a museum. Well, you haven't seen this one yet because, as I mentioned, one of my sisters has already been to Paris a lot. And it turns out that both of my sisters were really interested in seeing this exhibit. Mm-hmm. It turns out also that I discovered that I'm not that interested in fashion, which is just a personal aside, but it happens that you live and learn. And so I dutifully bought us tickets.
Yeah.
Now, I bought tickets for a Saturday morning at the opening. Because it had to do with our schedule. We had other days that we had certain things planned, and for one reason or another, it happens to be a museum like several others, including the Pompidou Center. For whatever reason, there are a group of museums in Paris that do not open until 11 o'clock. To my disappointment, because I was thinking, since we probably have to go either on a Saturday or Sunday, let's go Saturday morning and let's get there as early as we can because people will be staying in their hotels late and people will be having a lazy breakfast and then people won't show up until much later in the day.
Mm-hmm. You were counting on that, weren't you?
Counting on it, and thinking, well, Saturday better because the stores are open, more people will be out shopping, they won't come to this exhibit. This is my thinking, okay?
Yeah.
Live and learn. We had our tickets. The tickets were not timed, okay? This means that they were dated, so you had to go on a specific date. But what the museums are starting to do, except for very specific exhibits, is they're not giving you entrance times, which they had done in the past for certain shows. Like I went to see the Vermeer show this past winter at the Louvre. You had a time frame. You had a half an hour window to get in to see the exhibit.
Right.
In this case, I said to my sisters, okay, we're going to be there before the museum opens. Since 11 o'clock, easy stuff. You know, we get there at 10:30.
Which to me sounds like a long time. I mean,
to wait. You mean?
Yeah, it's a long time to wait. Half
right?
An hour, yeah. For a minor museum, I mean, that to me is a minor museum.
Right.
Yeah.
So we got there at 10:30. Mm-hmm. And the line was down to the Place de la Concorde practically already.
Goodness.
Because what had happened was they made you buy, and you have to, and this is like, no, it doesn't matter where you are going to go, you must have your museum tickets bought before you get there.
Right,
no
and
matter
this is
what.
not in the museum pass.
This is not necessarily, no, because we didn't have enough museums that we were going to go to. I don't need one. I have my guide card. My sisters decided that they didn't have that many museums they wanted to see. It wasn't worth it financially to buy the guide card. So I bought the tickets.
The museum pass?
I mean the museum pass.
Yeah.
So I simply bought us our tickets online, printed them out, and I was like, ooh, cool. We can get in, snap. When we got there, I looked at this line. There were 2 lines that went as far as the end of the Tuileries. One was a line for the people
That's a long way for those of you who don't know.
One was a line for those people like us who already had our tickets, but it was not time tickets. It just was for the day. Everybody had the same idea that I had, that it was better to get there as early as possible. And the other line was for the people who didn't have tickets at all.
Right. Which is worse.
Which is worse. As it happens, honestly, it moved quickly for the line that we were on with people who had their tickets. But it was still well past 11 o'clock before we actually got inside the museum. I have never, ever been to see an exhibit where the crowds were so horrible.
Oh.
And this is very strange because part of it has to do with the experience of being in a space that is not designed for masses of people crowding in together. Part of this museum is big and airy and has lots of space where you can move around. And part of it is very small little spaces. But I worked in museums so long, and my first reaction was, they should have made time tickets. They should have done something else because it was almost impossible to appreciate everything there was to see. And it was a huge, huge, huge exhibit. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to go in the summer and you have a very specific show or exhibit that you would like to see, not only do you have to make sure that you buy your tickets well ahead of time, and they're dated tickets, but if you can, make sure you get to whatever museum you're going to before the opening. Because the only other option, unless you don't mind elbowing your way through huge crowds to see a show, and it's not very pleasant because you don't really get to appreciate the work a lot.
Yeah, or you could go an hour and a half to 2 hours before closing.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. You read my mind. That is exactly what it is. You have to either go at the very, very beginning, well before the opening time, or you go at the very end of the day, because that is the only way you can get through this without having to just sort of breathe deeply and say, okay, I can handle this. Unless you don't care. But I did care, and I'm an experienced museum person, and I found it really, really unpleasant how crowded it was. Now, you can have crowds like that in certain wings of the Louvre. The wing of the Italian painting, when everyone goes to see the Mona Lisa, when people go up the steps to see the winged Victoria Samothrace. There are 2 or 3 pieces at the Louvre that people go to see. That was there, like, I'm here, here's my selfie, and then I'm out of here. But the reality is, in comparison to the size of the full museum, there are only a few places that are really that bad, crowded. And the rest of it, you can sort of spread out and enjoy yourself. It's a huge, huge space. So think about this. If you're going to do museums and you go in the summertime, this is part of what your planning has to be. You have to think about what time of the day you want to go and find out ahead of time online if a show has dated tickets and if by some chance it even has timed tickets.
Right. Time tickets are best.
Time tickets are best.
Yeah.
You have to observe it. You have to respect the time.
Right.
They usually give you a window of a half an hour. But it's really worth it because it tells you that there's going to be a lot of people, there will be big crowds, and that way...
Well, yeah, because they know they can have 200 people, they can take 200 people this half hour,
right,
and then they stop selling that time ticket. It's closed. So,
right. I mean, they don't push you, most of these places, this is not like my one experience years and years ago of going to the Vatican Museum, where they literally was pushing us through from one room to the other.
Yeah.
The crowds were that horrible. Here, they don't push you out, but most people... tend to...
That's true. In the Vatican...
They really did.
Yeah,
they pushed us through. Yeah. They wouldn't let us stay longer than 2-3 minutes of looking at something, and then that was the end of that.
Yeah.
But here, nobody does that. It's just that most people... There's a kind of average amount of time people spend looking at things, and then they just go on their way, So, and then there are 2 or 3 things. One is, depending upon how many days you're going to spend in Paris, know that if a museum is closed on Monday or Tuesday, most of the museums are closed either Monday or Tuesday.
Right.
That, if you take a look at the list of museums that are open and closed, the reality is the ones that are open on the one of those 2 days are going to be doubly crowded.
Yes.
It's a weird, I hope everybody understands what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, because, so on, let's see.
Monday, Orangerie is open, for instance.
Yes.
It's crowded.
Yes.
Because, and so is Orsay.
Right.
Because they're both closed on Tuesdays.
Yes.
So what happens is, think about things like that so that you don't have to stand on long lines and you don't have to deal with huge crowds.
Now, there's also this website, J'aime attendre, it's called.
Oh, really?
And it
would never be for me.
I know. It's a ridiculous name, right? They called it J'aime attendre, and it's for people who don't like to wait.
Oh, God, yes.
So it shows you the average wait times at various museums. But I don't think they include the decorative arts. But they do have it. They do show you the high and low for Louvre and Orsay and Orangerie and Versailles and a bunch of other ones. So I've talked about it before, but I'll put a link in the show notes again for that one, because it's really good to see. For instance, Orsay, it's best to go on a Wednesday morning. That's when they say
it's the best of Wednesday morning.
Yes. Who knows?
I don't know why. Yeah.
Yes. Who knows? It's just the way it is. So it's important to take a peek at that, and even more important is to, no matter what, get your tickets before you arrive, because otherwise you're just going to stand. You're going to have 2 lines. You're going to have 2 lines. The line to buy the ticket, and imagine the people in front of you, or this card is denied. Oh, try another one, or where's my cash, or people are idiots.
It's not.
They stand in line for an hour and they still don't have their credit card out.
Right. But, talking about Orsay, I know people are on vacation, and some people get up and go earlier, and then other people take their time with their breakfast in the hotel or their apartment or whatever, and then it's cool. So I was really trying to convince my sisters that we should get to Orsay as early as possible. I usually like to show up. Orsay opens at 10.
Right.
I, of course, always have my own entrance sesame card, but also I go with people who already have their tickets. That's just a given. We didn't get there at 10. We got there at 11 because it was a slow kind of, I need to take more time morning. This is July. I'm not used to doing this in July. Mm-hmm. The line of people who already had their ticket went across the Esplanade, down the steps, and down the street that is the street next to Orsay.
Wow.
And as we stood there...
I have never seen that.
I stood there, and I think I must have had one of those with my mouth open looks on and I'm thinking to myself, there's got to be a mistake here. This doesn't, it's like, what's wrong with this picture, And so I thought to myself, this has got to be the line for people who don't have their tickets, because there's always this snaking line.
Yeah.
And one of my sisters said to me, no, I don't think it is. And I went, yes, it is. And, we went into one of those dialogues, and it's like, sure enough, it was the line for people who already had their tickets. So summertime for certain museums.
We're just going through security. They only have 2 or 3 machines for security in there.
The line actually moved relatively quickly.
Right, it moves, but...
But this means that we're talking about the 2 or 3 museums or the 2 or 3 shows that are going to be the hits of the summer. Orsay is a popular museum.
Yep.
It is probably, in sheer numbers, the Louvre has more people, but in terms of Americans or English-speaking people, Orsay probably has more. Mm-hmm. And so this is a warning to people. You don't want to waste your time and hurt your back standing online for an hour before you even get into the museum.
Right. Plan it.
Plan your things, and know that the offside of going in the summer is that you really do deal with crowds like this. The only other time of the year that the crowds are like that are Christmas time. Mm-hmm. And that is really also pretty bad. But it's just to know ahead of time how to deal with this.
Plan on.
There are smaller unknown museums. You can go to the road down, which we've been to together. There's always a little bit of a line. It's never a big line. It's easy to get in.
Yeah.
Several other of the smaller museums are fine like that. But the big ones, the ones that you're probably going to go to if it's your first or maybe second time.
Louvre, Orsay, Orangerie. What else?
The Pompidou Center, interestingly enough.
Pompidou.
Well, a lot of people go. And I know you don't like it. You're not interested.
It was
particularly
okay.
in
Last time I was there.
There was some stuff. There was a show there that I really wanted to see. A very, very, very famous artist who's still alive named David Hockney. It was one of the best shows I've seen in the last 4 years. It was wonderful. I knew that it was a show where people were buying tickets ahead of time that were dated tickets. I didn't have much time. I hadn't really decided to do that ahead of time. I thought, okay, I've got my card. I'm just going to see what happens. The line to get in was medium size because I went at an odd time. I went at about 3:30 in the afternoon. The show had a lot of people, but it was not horrendous.
Right. And also the Pompidou, the thing is you have this big plaza at the bottom of the Pompidou. Yeah. Well, there's this, but inside, once you get inside, you have this big space.
Big space.
And you can buy your tickets in one of the corners. Well, there's an information booth in the center.
Right.
You buy your tickets, kitty corner from that. And then you have these 2 escalators that lead you up. And there's plenty of room. I mean, it doesn't feel crowded.
It doesn't feel crowded.
It's not like a big, lots of people on top of you.
Right.
You know?
It's much more spacious, obviously.
Yeah.
But there are some exhibits. I've been to some exhibits there where the line really goes across the entire esplanade outside to wait to get in.
Wow.
And where once you get upstairs, if I remember correctly, it was a 2 or 3. I don't remember. I never keep track of years, but it was a few years ago. The famous sculptor Giacometti. There was a huge retrospective of his work. It was packed. It wasn't as tightly packed as it is, in other places. You have to know that
French people like to go to exhibits.
Yeah.
They really like it. And so maybe there's fewer of them in July and August, but if they're staying home in July and August, then this would be a time of year when they do go out to exhibits.
That's right.
So because they probably have some time off work, whatever. Right. So you will have, there will be some French people. It's not going to be just visitors. It's going to be some locals that want to go see this silly exhibition. They want to see this thing.
Now, the Pompidou Center and Louvre now are open 2 nights a week.
Yeah.
And that's very nice. Don't be fooled, though. It doesn't mean it's going to be empty. It won't be.
No.
Because people start thinking, like everybody else, oh, look, I can go at night. Nobody else is going to be there. And then, of course, they go, oh, you did that too. But it is definitely less crowded.
Yeah.
And especially when you have a museum that's open until 9 o'clock at night, if you can, if you have the energy, if you haven't wiped yourself out by walking around all day seeing other things, it is a good option to do something like that.
Yeah. And the other thing you have to know is in France we have these special weekends.
Right.
Like this coming weekend.
Yes.
It'll be gone by the time you listen to this, but it's the Weekend du Patrimoine coming up. That draws huge crowds.
Crowds.
French people come out to this. In Paris, they have Les Nuits Blanches or whatever.
Les Nuits Blanches.
They have La Nuit au Musée. They have all sorts of...
And the first Sunday of every month, museums are free.
Right. And so those are days when the museums are crowded.
They're crowded.
Because it's free.
And people go.
And people really enjoy to go out to these events. Those are going to be busier than normal.
So, you need to know who you are, how much you can handle crowds.
Yeah.
If you have children, it depends on what age they are. If you have teenagers, nighttime visits can be fun too. You can plan your things around it. So that's my kind of like big thing about all the museums and everything else. I
think at least more and more because of terrorism concerns, because of cars reaming people, they don't want people standing in line anywhere people could ream into them.
Right.
And so they will, I think as time goes by, they will force people to use apps to, for instance, I talked about this a few episodes ago. The JeFile is an app to go up the Notre Dame towers, you open the app on the morning you want to go, and you say, I want to reserve a spot. And because the problem with Notre Dame, that tower, is because there's a street right there, and they can't close it off because it's one of the few streets where to go to the Ile Saint-Louis. Yes. So, and it's a big concern. There's always cops screening people who's driving in, kind of thing. But you never know, and so they are worried about that. And so I think there's going to be more and more push for people to do more than reserve their tickets online, but
really decide when.
But decide when they're going to go, so they don't have to stand and wait forever.
Right.
Because that makes you a target for both pickpockets, for annoying moments, and also, unfortunately, for terrorism too.
Right. Yeah, pickpockets. Oh, I'll come back to that. We didn't have any bad experiences, but just a word about that. But I just wanted to say something about hotels. It is a fact that if you are going to book a hotel from mid-July until, I would say, the end of the third week in August, and you are staying a minimum of 3 nights, you can usually get a very good deal. The hotels, ironically, in spite of the fact that there are masses of foreigners, the tourists who come to see Paris in the summer, I'm not sure why exactly, but if you know ahead of time, and I'm saying ahead of time meaning at least 4 months ahead of time, things like that, that you are going to be there. You need to have a minimum stay usually of 3 nights, but you can usually negotiate very good prices. Surprisingly,
call the hotels.
But once you get to the last week in July and the first 2 weeks in August, they usually cut the prices in Paris, which is not the case in other cities. I was in another city in another country. Afterwards, it was exactly the opposite. But it happens that in Paris, there is, for whatever reason, even though they do eventually fill up with tourists, the hotels are far more apt to give you a break on a price if you negotiate with them and call ahead of time. And you can do an online booking, but we know from experience that if you can call the hotel directly and say, this is the number of nights we'd like to stay, what can you offer for this, a double room, a triple room, 2 rooms, whatever it is, you will be surprised to discover that you can get a fairly good deal.
Especially if you're staying several nights.
Especially. You need a minimum of 3 nights. Staying a minimum of 3. If you have more than that, it's even better. You would be surprised. I mean, I've had this with several different hotels. It is not just a quirk. It happens that it works like that.
Right, because they know it doesn't fill up as easily. And, speaking of that, I heard something really interesting about Airbnb in Paris.
Yeah.
Paris has a problem with rents being very high, just like other large cities in the world. And one of the things that contributes to those rents being so high is that there are a lot of people who have now figured out that if they are wealthy enough to buy a few apartments around Paris and rent them as Airbnb, the rule is that you can only rent your apartment. Airbnb says you should rent a place that's yours where you live. Right. But that was the original intent.
Right.
But of course, in large cities where there's a lot of demand, people have gotten wise to the fact that they can invest in an apartment and make better money renting it out to tourists. In Paris, it's up to 120 days a year.
Which is a lot.
Right. And they don't mind if the apartment is empty the rest of the time.
Right.
They still make more money than putting that money in the bank.
Right.
Okay. So the city of Paris, there are other cities that have a problem with high rent. New York is one of them.
Right.
And in New York, you can only legally rent out your apartment as Airbnb for 60 days out of the year. Or maybe it's only 30. I can't remember. But it was much more restrictive. And so Paris is talking about restricting that. And for sure that if a French person lives next to an apartment that's being rented out to tourists too much, they will complain to the authorities.
They will complain.
They will complain.
Yes.
So there's going to be neighborhood enforcement of these things, not because the police is going to knock on doors and say, are you a tourist or not? It's because the neighbors will say, look, this guy is getting on my nerves because the apartment is empty most of the year.
Yep.
And then these tourists show up all of a sudden, and then we see nobody for months on end. And that's a sure sign.
It's a real no-no.
Yeah, that's a big no-no. So Airbnb also contributes to all of that. And honestly, the prices of Airbnbs in Paris are really high. I can see the one good reason to get an Airbnb in Paris is if there are a lot of you. If you're coming with 2, 3 kids, 4 kids, maybe you're coming with grandparents, then yes, you need a bigger place, and hotels won't be able to accommodate that. I mean, they'll make you take separate rooms, and in that case, it'll climb up really fast.
Right.
You can usually have more people in an Airbnb than in a hotel, but otherwise, the prices are horrible. I'm sorry, folks.
It's hotel prices.
It's hotel prices.
It's hotel prices.
It's exactly the same. So just consider that.
No, I agree with you. The only other reason, of course, is if you have special diet needs and you need to do your own cooking or something like that.
That's true.
But otherwise, you're absolutely right. It's if you have kids, if you need to have a space where you can do your own laundry easily and do a little cooking,
exactly,
that's fine.
Then it makes sense.
But you're absolutely right. And of course, part of the problem is that people in Paris who are living in Paris resent the fact that all the rents and all the prices are going high because there are these apartments that could be used by people all year long.
Right.
And they are empty a good part of the year. And then they don't like the idea of all these foreigners traipsing in and out, and you never know who it is. And it changes every 3-4 days. And there's a whole, it's a different mentality about stuff like that. And of course, there is the whole problem of people making it legal or, declaring their income.
Right. And now there's plenty of Airbnb owners that are on the up and up. They declare this to the
fisc.
The fisc, yeah. I was looking for the name in English.
The tax people.
The tax people. And so those have nothing to fear, because if the neighbors complain, they say, well, look, I rent to Airbnb, but I pay my taxes, but most of them do not.
Right.
And so the neighbors will keep complaining. And so when you show up with your suitcases as a visitor, you might get some funny looks. It doesn't happen that often, but in places where the owner has been a jerk about it, and very often the type of person who's likely, who's got lots of money in the bank and wants to make a buck, they tend to be jerks.
Yeah.
I mean, because
they're not doing it to meet people and be nice.
Yeah, no, they're not. And so in those cases, you will run into some resistance. There is absolutely nothing wrong with people who go on vacation and they happen to have a nice apartment. They want to rent it out for 4 weeks or whatever. Nothing wrong whatsoever. As a matter of fact, bless them. That's wonderful. But it's the people who do it for investment purposes and who are hard-nosed about it and just not very friendly or to the rest of the neighbors. There you go. Rant over.
Yeah. But it is interesting, the whole thing of accommodations. We talking about the whole question of apartment versus hotel room. It's also a question of, your specific needs. Just know that by experience, I found out this summer that if you want a triple room for 3 adults, it's not easy to find.
Nope.
And it's one thing to have a room that has a big double bed and then a small bed for a child. But if you want 3 separate comfortable beds in
like
a
3
room,
sisters, for instance,
like 3 adult sisters, it is really not easy. And we were not looking at low-end hotels. We were not looking at palaces, but we were definitely not looking at low-end hotels. So those are things. A word about restaurants. A lot of restaurants, small restaurants, not the big brasseries, which never close no matter what, all year long, they're open. But a lot of little restaurants in the places that you want to discover in the little neighborhood, like where we are in the Latin Quarter or on Ile Saint-Louis, some of these places close for 2 or 3 weeks in the summer. Mm-hmm. Now, you may have read about a restaurant. You think, oh, great, I'm going to go there. Check it out ahead of time.
Yeah.
and check out to see, because sometimes what happens is that closure can be something that's not pre-planned a long, long time ahead of time. Or it can be something that's decided maybe 2 months ahead of time, and they'll say, okay, we're going to shorten our hours in the summer. So again, this is by discovery, you suddenly find yourself thinking, oh, I really wanted to do that, but now what's my backup plan? Okay?
Yeah.
What's my backup, because that restaurant is not available to me? And there are, of course, hundreds and hundreds of wonderful, small, little restaurants. But those are the places that are likely to be closed for 2 or 3 weeks.
They do close. Yeah,
they close.
The places that never close are the chains. Because they have enough staff.
They're either the chains or the big brasseries. When you go to the big brasseries in Montparnasse or on Boulevard Saint-Michel, these are, the brasserie, we did a long, long, long time ago, a whole thing about what's the difference between a restaurant and a brasserie. Well, a brasserie, of course, is open all day long from early in the morning on, and you can get anything all day long. It's kind of like the French version of going to a diner. You can get breakfast at any time of the day. You can get hot food any time of the day. There are no set hours. And usually they are open, 14 hours a day, if or more.
7 a.m. till
7 a.m.
10.
till at least 10 or 11 at night.
Yeah.
Those, there are lots of them. Some of them are excellent. Some of them are not so good. But restaurants are smaller and usually have set hours for lunch and set hours for dinner. And those are the ones where you might find yourself not planning ahead of time and thinking, I would like to go there. And then you discover at the last minute that it's closed. So check before you go, if you can.
Check their website.
Check their websites. And sometimes, unfortunately, we had that happen once. The website is not up to date.
Oh, well, yes.
So call.
Yes,
if you can, or send an email if it's a restaurant that has an email.
But again, if you call at 10 a.m., they might not be there yet.
No, but we had the experience.
11:30.
The place
for sure
that we both. Well, you didn't actually eat there, but the place that we took the group to, and that I went back to with my sisters. The auberge.
Auberge des Deux Ponts. Yeah.
So I wanted to take them there. Originally, we were going to go on a Saturday. I called. I didn't know that. I don't know, and honestly, now I don't remember if what he said afterwards when I saw him was that it was just for the summer, or it was my mistake. In any event, during the summer, he only does dinner; he doesn't do lunch. So what happened was I called all day long. I kept calling, and I left a couple of messages, and then I kept calling back, and then the last time I called, I think, was around 5, and then I said to my sisters, "Never mind," and we went somewhere else. And then Sunday, I don't remember where we were, and I thought, hey, I remember where we were. We were we had gone to visit the Palais Royal, and we were walking around having fun, taking pictures there. And one of my sisters said, you want to try again? And I was kind of like, he didn't answer, and it was closed all day yesterday. And, and I was in one of my little, I'm going to be a big grumpy about this.
Yeah.
And at 6:30, I thought, well, never mind. It's not going to. And so it called at 6:30, and he picked up the phone. Now, this is a tiny restaurant where there's one person. Okay.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, you're there. You're here. I was like totally
surprised. Yeah.
Flabbergasted. Anyway, we wound up going and having a fun, very nice dinner there at about 8-ish. And I asked him, I said to him, I tried to get you all day yesterday. And he said, I think it's because he said it was the summertime that he only did dinners. And I said, well, I left you a message. And he said, well, I don't come in till like between 5:30 and 6. And I thought, okay.
He doesn't have time to answer all these messages.
So just know that one of the things to do is have backup. Like if you think you want to try a restaurant, think of what your backup if the first choice is not going to work, because you just don't know. It's very different from the States where you never have to think about things like that ever.
No.
It's just not an issue. So just a couple of other little things. Annie, the pickpocket. I feel like this is the Groucho Marx show where the thing comes down.
Yeah, we're complaining about all this stuff.
Right.
We're grumpy today.
Pickpockets. We did not have any bad pickpocket experiences.
Good.
And we did go to Montmartre. The bane of your existence. However, it is true that I think more than anywhere else, the one place that I was worried about was in the metro, because there are 2 or 3 metro lines that are packed with tourists, and tourists are such targets for pickpockets, you know. And so if you take the number one, the famous number one, which goes east-west, right, from Vincennes to the Défense, we got on that several times, and the cars were packed. And I thought, oh boy, I know that this is the place where if something's going to happen, it can happen. Now, it did not happen to us. We were very lucky. But just know that the more...
Zip it all up.
Yep. Zip it all up. Keep your bag in front of you with your arm across it. Do not put anything in a back pocket of any kind whatsoever. Don't tempt fate. Just don't tempt it.
And when you go out, just take one credit card and a little bit of cash and a photocopy of your ID. Leave the rest at home.
Yeah.
You know, or in the hotel safe. If you take your, I don't know, if you're from Michigan and you take your Michigan driver's license, guess what? You are not going to use your Michigan driver's license. In France, it means nothing to anybody. So leave it either in Michigan or
in the safe. In the safe. Right.
Because if you happen to be pickpocketed, you will have lost your credit cards, your Michigan driver's license, maybe other things that you use in the U.S. all the time, but you won't use in France. So anything that you don't need, leave it in the hotel safe.
Yeah. I mean, it's a general problem all over, specifically in Paris, where there are masses of tourists who cluster in front of Notre Dame at the Eiffel Tower. But the metro in the summertime is almost exclusively tourists, and you can tell when it's tourists.
Yes, of course.
And you know, I've seen this happen in New York. It's not just Paris, but just know that you have to be very, very, very careful.
Yeah.
There are a few places, you know, that we know are prime territory for that.
Zip, zip, and don't take it. And not taking very much with you is good advice anyway, because as you probably, you may not know this if you haven't been to Paris in a long time, but in Paris anymore, you have to open your bag anywhere you go.
Yeah.
Even a department store.
For security.
For security purposes. They will look in your bag. And so take the smallest bag you can. If you have a tiny bag, it's very quick. You just show that you have a tiny bag and you're good to go.
And not a banana, not a belt thing. Forget it. Those are not good. You know? They're too easy to clip off. They're really, I mean, the police have talked about it, you know, you can come up. But what's good to do, if you're somebody like me who's constantly carrying around a water bottle and a this and that, basically the best thing, even though it might be a little bit of a hassle, is to have a small bag that you carry on you and then a little light tote that you put a few things in, like the water bottle, if you need a little sweater in case it's cool or something like that.
Yeah, where you put nothing of importance.
Right, exactly. You know, your little umbrella, whatever it is. I mean, just, you know, those are the kinds of things where it doesn't really matter. And as a heroine in one of my favorite, very Victorian police series carries around an umbrella all the time. I always walk around with my umbrella thinking I can always use it to hit somebody over the head in case they bother me, you know.
How many times have you done that in your whole life?
Never.
Okay.
Never.
Now we know.
I actually like the idea. I don't know why. I mean, it's just
you showed up with a nice bright
red.
Burgundy red umbrella today.
Yeah. And then just a few of the fun things that are really great in the summertime. People.
Oh, good. Now we're getting to the good stuff.
Now we're getting to the good stuff.
Aren't you happy you waited with us that long?
Right. Some people probably know because it exists already in certain cities in the States, but you know, Paris is the city that started what they call the Vélib, which means you can rent a bicycle for the first half hour free with a bank card, but you can rent it obviously for as long as you want. And in the summer, because there is much less traffic, it is a wonderful thing to do in certain parts of the city. You can they close off parts of the roads along the banks of the Seine. You can go in and out of the parks. You can go along some of the small side streets. And even me, who is not really a big fan of biking in between cars, you can go along the Canal Saint-Martin all the way up to la Villette on a bike path, and it's a really fun thing to do.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to do with your family.
Right, and in the summer, because there's fewer cars, it's not harrowing.
It's not as harrowing, and you really, it's much more enjoyable. You don't have to worry either about the fumes, you don't have to worry about being hit by a car. It's just a really neat thing to do.
Yeah. And you just need to set up an account, because obviously they don't want you to take the bike and resell it.
Right.
So they want to have a credit card.
Which can happen, but most people are pretty honorable about things like that.
Yeah.
Another thing that's wonderful to do, and it only is possible in the warm summer months, is go to one of what are called the Guinguettes.
Ah, yes, the Guinguettes.
The Guinguettes. And it turns out, since we did our bateaux mouches the very first night, it was fun because I had looked online and I had seen, now a Guinguette, it's a word that I don't know its actual origins, but in the 19th century, it was where all of the famous Impressionist painters would go and hang out with their friends. Because
I think it means danser.
Does it mean danser?
I think it means danser.
But it's along water. So it's either along a river or a lake. Mm-hmm. And it's a place where you eat, have drinks, and dance. Mm-hmm. And a couple of years ago, the city of Paris decided to set up Guinguettes now along the Seine River. Mm-hmm. And to my incredible surprise, there were a whole bunch of them. Mm-hmm. So you have a couple going east, going towards Bercy. You have a whole slew of them on the left bank side as you go towards the Eiffel Tower, one after the other. They were packed. They're so much fun. You have also a couple of the boats that, instead of doing rides back and forth on the Seine, have just docked themselves and created a kind of dancing place. Yeah. So you have a choice. You have a choice of atmosphere. You have a choice of whether you want it to be super casual or whether you want it to be a little bit more on the upper side with a full formal meal. But there are so many of them, and they were so much fun. And there's one that's right near the Eiffel Tower. It's packed, and it's got some neons around it. They're just the most wonderful thing. And if you really are a dancer or somebody who wants to try dancing, if you go along the Seine River out to the area of the 13th arrondissement, which means that you're on the east side. So on the north side of that, you have Bercy, which is, and on the south side, you have the 13th, which is after the Arab Institute. You have a whole section of the banks of the river where there are different kinds of music, and you can have free dance lessons.
Oh, cool.
So there's salsa and tango and rock and waltz, and there's a whole section of things like that. And since it was the summertime and it was really nice weather, these places were filled, and it really makes Paris a summer festival. And there's this new place out on the eastern end, on an island, the Boulogne-Billancourt.
Yeah, Boulogne-Billancourt.
They've created a music and cultural center where there are concerts and dance performances. And the Alvin Ailey dance troupe, which is a very famous.
The who? Sorry,
Alvin Ailey. It's an American dance troupe that is very, very famous.
Okay. How do you spell the last name?
Ailey.
Okay.
That comes out of New York. They were giving a couple of shows. Actually, we didn't go, but it was one of the nights we were there. There were it's a huge outdoor stadium where they have concerts. There's a whole lot of stuff being done along the Seine River. And the weather was nice. We had a couple of days of a little bit of rain, but the weather was not cold. We had a couple of days of wonderful sun and warm. And you really get the sense, and it is really this time, I'd say, done for the few Parisians who do not leave and for the tourists, because all of this happens in the summertime.
Yeah.
And so it really makes Paris a summer festival.
This is something that you have to understand about France, is that in France, people like to go out.
Yeah.
Most people love to go out. And they love to have something to go out to. And we like to have events.
Yeah.
When I'm in the US, I'm always surprised. Like, there's nothing to
There's nothing.
do other than shopping, like
Or go to a local little restaurant.
or other than eating and shopping.
Right. There's nothing to do.
Not that much in most places in America. Whereas in France, there's always something to do. It's true, my village in August, nothing happens, but the rest of the year there are things to do.
And Toulouse, which is just a few minutes away, has stuff all summer.
Has plenty to do. Guinguettes, it comes from the mot guinguet, petit vin blanc aigre et bon marché produit en Île-de-France.
Aha.
So it was nasty Parisian
wine. They probably watered it down.
Whatever. But it is a place where people go dance, and the Wikipedia article shows Van Gogh
and
Renoir painted it,
right.
and it's in the French thing. People in the evening, they like to go out and either walk or dance or drink nasty wine.
Oh, drink nasty wine. And they were actually now, they've just reopened 2 of these Guinguettes, not just along the Seine, but in 2 of the parks in Paris. So you really have a choice of places to go. And it's, I don't know, maybe it's because I associate it also with all of those wonderful painters from the 19th century. There's something that's just so joyous and fun about it, you know? So I mean, there's so much to do that's like that. The parks are wonderful. They're filled with flowers. They're just, it's blooming everywhere. So as long as you have a good plan and you take your precautions, it's fine. It's a wonderful time to go. It's just know that you'll be with a lot of other people who've had the same idea.
And the other thing, too, is if you're someone like me who likes to see the Eiffel Tower sparkle, it doesn't sparkle till late because, remember, in France, sunset in the summer is late. It's like 9:45, 10:15 probably is the latest we get. And so it stays daylight very late. And so, there's the Eiffel Tower, you have to stay up to see it.
We took the 9 o'clock boat.
Yeah.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
First of all, we went...
And it does go off at 9, right?
It goes off, it's every hour on the hour for 5 minutes.
Right, but it starts at 9 p.m.
I don't know if it started at 9 or at 8, but interestingly, the boats, the bateaux mouches, it depends on the current or something, whether they start going east or start going west. You see,
you never know.
You never know. And this time it was perfect because we went east first. So by the time we turned around and went back the other way and got as far as the Eiffel Tower, we got there just when it was starting to sparkle.
That's really nice.
And it was so cool because there were the Guinguettes down below and everybody was dancing and you could hear the music. And there you were with this show of lights. And, it's like, you can't be indifferent to it. It's just totally gorgeous, you know? It's just like, wow.
It's like a miracle.
It's just like a miracle.
Yeah, you're like, why is this? Wow, this thing is like sparkling.
Sparkling, you know?
It's huge and it sparkles.
And it was kind of neat because, there were a lot of people on the boat, and of course we were on a boat we were out on the top deck, and so my sister, who is not that familiar with Paris, who'd been there once when she was just out of college, which was a long time ago, had never had that experience. And she's traveled a lot and she's done lots of other things. And she's not so much a big city person, but like she was like a kid. It was like, oh my God, is this gorgeous? You know? So it was a great way to end the cruise that night. So, yeah. So that's my little briefing about Paris in the summertime. And we didn't talk about stuff that has to do with being out of the city, but we'll do that another time.
Yeah.
But it just is, it's a different atmosphere when you go in the summer. So it has a carnival atmosphere. You will not be alone. You just need to know that there are certain things you have to prepare for.
Right. And you have to plan your days out, which is what we've been preaching the whole time. Just bite down the bullet, decide what you're going to do on what day, get your tickets, and do this way before you leave.
Because it's too frustrating to suddenly realize that you can't do something you wanted to do because you didn't plan it ahead of time.
Right. But at the same time, don't sweat the small stuff either. I mean, you need to know where you're going to sleep. You need to know what you want to see.
Right.
But you don't need to know what every meal is going to be. You know?
No.
You don't need to... Oh, this is something that I rant about on almost every episode, but I'll do it again today. Don't buy the thing that you have to go to that one bakery.
Yeah.
Okay, or
Right.
patisserie. There's a billion of them.
There's a billion of them.
Try some around you.
Thank you for saying that.
If you're hungry, try something next to you. You
Right.
walk in front of one, try it. And it might not be the best one you've ever had, but it'll probably be decent. It might be the best one you've ever had.
And restaurants, the same. Unlike hotels and buying tickets to get into museums, you do not have to reserve zillions of weeks ahead of time for a restaurant unless you're going to go to the Tour d'Argent and or the Jules Verne.
There's a few where you have to. There's some where
but otherwise you can decide 2 days ahead of time. You can decide the morning of and make a call and say, we'd like a reservation.
Yeah.
Those are things you can check out. And walking around, if you have a sense of places, see where there are lots of people, that it's not super touristy sometimes. You say, oh, that kind of looks nice, try
but
it.
Even Montmartre, which I don't particularly like, but if you get off of the beaten path,
it's wonderful.
It is nice. I have to say, it's nice. It's just, I wish there weren't so many pickpockets. And I wish there weren't so many people.
Right.
But otherwise, it is a nice area. When you walk around the little streets,
it's lovely.
It's lovely, and there's a lot of history to it and all that. So, yes, I do admit it can be nice, but you have to, you have to plan your days a little bit. So,
a little bit.
Yeah, and obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you plan your days, or you wouldn't be. You'd be like, I don't know. I see.
Or you're dreaming about when you get there.
Right, but I see so many tourists who show up and they have no idea. They didn't put in an ounce of thought into
research,
into what they're going to do.
It's weird.
How do you live like that? It's very strange to me because I'm not a super controlling person. I don't think I am. But I just, there's a few things I need to know.
Right.
Like where I'm going to sleep, what I'm going to see. Why am I going there? Like, what's my goal for this? I mean, even for a vacation, I have a bit of a goal, something I want to experience,
It's so funny you're saying that because in another city, in another country, the week after being in Paris, we had one day that basically the first half was nice because it was planned. The second half was exactly that. For me, personally, it was a fizzle because we had not done enough research and I found myself thinking, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm wasting my time and we only have this one afternoon here. So I absolutely agree with you. Yeah. It's also true, however, just for an hour or two, that one of the luxuries and one of the most wonderful things about being in France and in being in Paris is walking a neighborhood you don't know.
Yeah.
Just find a cafe that looks appealing, sit down, have a little coffee or a drink, and watch the world go by.
Yes, and there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, in the morning I'm going to go do this, and in the afternoon I'm going to do that.
Right.
And in between,
I have a little time.
I do nothing. I just walk around, have a drink, have some food, look at people, whatever, go discover. You don't want to be overscheduled either, but you need to have a few basics.
Yeah.
Yes, a few basics. All right, Elyse, are we done?
I think we are.
I apologize. We have complained a fair bit on this episode.
Well,
I was getting old.
No, I don't think it was complaining. I think it's just warnings.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, okay, look, I was there in July and we had a lot of fun. It's just that I think that even though there are certain elements like the whole question of pickpockets and all of that are basically the same every time of the year, I think that in terms of planning, knowing about how to deal with hotels, knowing how to deal with museums, this is just a way of saying, okay, do it, but do it this way.
Yeah. Oh, and also make sure your hotel has air conditioning because it gets hot and muggy in France in the summer. And even Elyse, who doesn't love air conditioning, you like it sometimes.
I have to admit, it hurts me to say this. Really, it hurts me to say this. But we had air conditioning in our hotel in Paris. And for 3 of the 5.5 days we were there, I was really thankful we did because it was hot and muggy. And so, yes.
Some days you have to have it. Make sure because some of them don't. So
right. And that is something that...
due diligence. Read your hotel.
There are more and more that do, but especially if you're in an older, smaller hotel, you really have to confirm it
Yeah, and they will tell you, oh, it's big, thick walls. It doesn't get hot. Yeah, no. If it's muggy, if it's a hot and a humid day, if it's 100 degrees and 90% humidity, you will die in there.
Yeah,
okay, even if it's thick walls. So check that out.
Yeah.
Au revoir, Elyse.
Goodbye, Annie.
Talk to you next week.
See you soon.
Bye-bye. Back to Annie with the quacky voice. Sorry about that, guys. Thank you, Anthony Webb, for pledging to support the show on Patreon this week. And thank you to all the other patrons who support the show month after month. Thank you for giving back. To support the show on Patreon, go to patreon.com/join us. That's spelled Patreon. Join us without any spaces or dashes. And thank you. Thank you, Eddie Gibson and Lula Rowe, for your one-time donation. Much appreciated. You know, I get lots of emails and Facebook comments that say, your podcast is so much better than any guidebook. I learned so many details that I wouldn't have known about otherwise. So let me point this out to you. You have to shell out $20 to get a guidebook about Paris. So if this is better than a guidebook, I mean, you understand this, right? So I want you to know that I really appreciate those of you who do donate, and I wish more of you would do it because I'm like everybody else. I only have 24 hours in a day and bills to pay. So to support the show, go to joinusinfrance.com/support to see how it all works. And as always, thank you to those of you who support the show. Patreon supporters will get a new installment of the French History Brief very shortly, and it will be about the secret love affair between Marie Antoinette and Axel de Fersen. And the week after that, you will get your new installment of Lunch Break French, so there are nice perks to supporting the show on Patreon. My voice is shot today because I was at the Barcelona Marathon yesterday. My sister was running her first marathon ever. She's been a runner for many years, but that was her first time tackling a marathon. And several family members came to support her, of course, because, you know, we live in Toulouse and it's not that far from Barcelona. And I also photographed the event, and it would appear that I encouraged the runners with my voice too much. I mean, I had the camera in my hand, that's why, but this is not such a lovely result, so I apologize about it. But it was totally worth it. The marathon was so much fun. And I would be derelict not to mention that there are 2 trip reports with people who ran the Paris Marathon. If you look back into previous episodes of the show, or do a search on the website, episode 155 with Callie and episode 164 with Mike. Both shared great tips and insights on their experience running the Paris Marathon. And since my voice is shot, I'm going to keep this short and tell you that the best way to connect with me is via email, annie@joinusinfrance.com. Or if you have a question you'd like answered on the show, leave a message on 1-801-806-1015. This is just a voicemail box. You can also join the awesome Join Us in France closed group on Facebook, where lots of knowledgeable folks hang out and exchange France trip advice. I am there too, as much as I can. Au revoir. Have a great week of trip planning. The Join Us in France Travel Podcast is written and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2017 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.